It was on the coldest day of winter that Lila stood barefoot on the train platform, gripping a worn letter in her trembling hands. Snowflakes danced in the air like fragile hopes, and the train that could change everything was already late again. But she waited. Not just for the train, but for the moment her life would finally begin to make sense. Lila Hart had always been the quiet one. In a world that prized speed, noise, and results, she chose stillness, softness, and hope. Growing up in a small town tucked between forgotten hills and silent rivers, she knew what it meant to wait. She waited for her father to return from shifts at the factory, even when the dinners grew cold. She waited for her mother's smile to return after grief took her youngest son. And she waited for her own chance to matter in a world that had rarely noticed her presence. By 24, she had become an invisible fixture in her town. The girl who helped at the library. The one who made tea for the elderly. The one who walked alone, head down, always polite but never loud enough to be remembered. But inside her burned a dream so vivid it lit her every night. She wanted to be a storyteller. Not just any storyteller, but one whose words could reach into people's pain and pull out light. She had notebooks filled with stories, poems, letters she never sent. Every contest she entered ended in rejection. Every manuscript she sent came back with the same line, "Not what we're looking for." One day, she stumbled across a contest called The Voice Unheard, a writing competition designed to find untold stories from unseen voices. The grand prize was modest, publication and a small stipend. But it felt like destiny. For once, it felt like the world had left the door slightly open for someone like her. She poured her soul into the story. She wrote about a woman who waited 20 years for her husband lost at sea, only to find him broken, memoryless, but she loved him anyway. It was raw, it was tender, it was Lila's truth veiled in fiction. She mailed it. And waited. Weeks passed. Then months. No word. People around her began to move on. Her best friend moved to the city to chase a career. Her father retired and moved south. Her world became smaller. Doubts became louder. She began to wonder if patience was just another name for foolishness. One evening, after a long day of shelving books, she came home to find a letter on her doorstep, gold embossed, thick, official. Her heart raced. She opened it with fingers that shook like leaves in a storm. She hadn't won. But she was a finalist. One of 5 out of nearly 10,000. Her story would be featured. Her name, Lila Hart, would be printed. People would read her words. And that was the beginning. What followed wasn't a sudden explosion of success. There were still rejections, still quiet days. But slowly, her voice found ears. Her story was shared online and touched thousands. Emails came in from people who cried, who said thank you. A small publisher reached out, asking if she had more. She did. She always had more. Over the next 3 years, Lila published 2 collections. She was invited to speak, not loudly, but with impact. People leaned in to hear her, because her words carried weight. She didn't rise fast, but she rose steadily. Each step was earned. Each moment was met with grateful patience. Looking back, she realized something simple yet profound. The world had taught her that waiting was weakness, that the fastest won the race. But now she knew the truth. Sometimes, the deepest roots grow in silence. Sometimes, the strongest blooms take the longest to rise. Lila's story wasn't just about writing. It was about holding on when no one's looking. It was about believing in the invisible work. And it became a message not just for dreamers, but for anyone standing at their own platform, waiting for something that seems late or impossible. The train finally came for her, not in the way she imagined, but in the way she needed. And when it did, she was ready. So to anyone listening, remember, patience is not the absence of action. It is the quiet perseverance of the soul. Wait to win, not because you're standing still, but because you're growing, healing, preparing. And when your moment comes, you'll meet it whole.